Hello, are you out there? I'm Mark, and we're back to our little learning to program using GameMaker Studio 2.0. We're on episode 5. So let's go over homework really quickly. Last episode, we had talked about how to make the orc creatures move around the screen randomly. So what we did is we got a random number range between the number 1 and the number 4, and that was going to be north, east, south, and west. Or think clockwise, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock on the face of a clock. So we did direction 1, which was north, and direction 3, which was south already, using the Y value of the orc. So remember, Y is this way on the screen, up and down, and the X value is going to be for east and west. The homework is to give directions or logic for east and west. In this case, direction number 2, east, direction number 4, west. So you did that simply by writing in code saying, if V direction equals 2, and we use the double equal sign to do a comparison, not an assignment, then X equals X plus 128 pixels. All right. And then down here, we did if V direction is equal to 4, then X will equal or be assigned the value of X minus 128. So that's right. The further we're going this way on the screen, we're adding to X, and our character will go da, 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 da. And if we subtract from X, the character will go this way. All right. So let's run that really quick and just see what we got. So we want to see our orcs moving up and down as well as right and left. There you go. I see him walking right through my character's head. I bet you they can walk through each other. So, yep, you see the orkies overlapping right there. They're just walking past each other and into each other. So we probably want to do a couple things today. Let's start using collisions. We can make it so that the orcs can't walk through us, through each other. We can also make it so that when the orcs touch us, we take damage. And we could probably get into a little homework assignment where we control whether the orcs walk off the screen, like up here. Because you notice all of our orcs have disappeared. They've done what's called a random walk. And although our game window is only so big, the field in which the orcs can walk into is probably negative 100,000 by positive 100,000. It would be a massive thing, like the size of my house. The orcs could go walking across the street relative to you in the virtual game world. They could go to the next house over. They could get so far away from your character from the screen you're watching this on right now. Just to give you an idea of how large those numbers can go, because we're not rendering it. It's just in code, it's way the heck over there. So yeah, you can have massive game maps. Okay, so all the orcs are gone. Let's get this fixed. Good news is GameMaker Studio 2.0 has already more or less done this work for us. It makes it really simple to fix stuff. And this is interesting as well because it's darn confusing if you don't understand how to fix it up. Bear with me. Here we go. Under Object Orc, there's this little option here called Solid. It's a checkbox. Check it. In solid instances will automatically be placed back in their previous positions when in collision. Okay, so my orc is solid now. Awesome. Let's also go to our hero. We know that we want our hero to be solid as well. Let's run the code, because what can happen when you're not really sure how GameMaker Studio works is you'll sit there and go, oh, I've checked my objects as solid, so they won't collide with each other. Well, unfortunately, to me, it looks like the orcs are still colliding with each other, and they're colliding with me, right? They're just overlapping. This didn't fix anything. Solid doesn't work. All right, let's pause the game or stop the game. There's one other thing to consider. When we look at solid, it specifically at the very end says it'll automatically be placed back in their previous position when in collision. Well, collision is like a word. It's a thing in the code of GameMaker Studio. So now check this out. We're going to simply go to the Orky Porkies. We're going to add an event, And down here is the collision event that I pointed out last time. Here's a list of all the objects. Now, you see the objects here? They exactly match the objects we have in our objects directory. Yeah. So as we add more objects like lava pits or tree stumps or brick walls, alligators, green slimes, we can add more and more objects. So let's just do this. Let's say whenever the orc is going to collide with the hero, here is a new code window right here. There's alarm, there's create, there's release left, there's object here. There's no code in it, but at least now it's an event. Remember, GameMaker Studio 2.0, when you use it the way GameMaker has designed it for you to be easy, it's event-driven. You don't have to make a game event-driven, but this is the easiest way for them to give you a lot of options as a new coder. And they're really powerful. They're good tools. There's no reason you wouldn't want to use the events. And let's do one other thing, though. Let's add another event, collision object orc. Because not only do we not want the orcs walking over the hero, we don't want the orcs walking over each other. Let's run the game again. So all I had to do was check collision, and then add the collision. I had to check solid for the orc, solid for the hero, and then I had to make a collision for the hero and a collision with the orc. Let's jump over to the hero real quick before we run it. Let's do the same thing. Add event, collision, object with the orc. There's only one hero, so I'm not going to worry about other hero collisions. But there you go. Now, whenever the hero is moving or the orc is moving, they're going to have collision events. And now solid will work in the event of a collision. Without this code, it wasn't going to work. But let's run it and see what happens. We're recording here? Yeah. Okay, so now if I move my character, I'm hitting the up. It won't let me move up. Why? Because the orc was right there. Now let's see. Will the orcs here? See these two moving? They won't walk into each other. That guy won't walk into me. Let me see. Can I get? I can't move into him. So I'm trying to move left. It won't let me move because that's what the collision says. We'll just watch for a second. What the collision says is it will, when you move your character, an object into another object, it will bounce it back. And so even though I'm hitting the left key trying to walk into that orc, it virtually in code moving it there and saying, oh wait, when I move it in code, there's a collision. So I'm going to subtract that plus 128 to X. I tried it. I saw there's a collision. I'm going to subtract the 120. I'm going to undo that step. So to the player, it's seamless. All right. So that was item number 1 is pretty much fixed. If you watch that minute of play just now, not only could we not move our hero into the orcs, but the orcs didn't step over each other at all. Let's take a quick little look, though. Let's go back to the sprites. We haven't looked at the sprites in a while. Remember, the sprites are the artwork. We're going to jump into sprite object dwarf. This right here is a 128 by 128 box of the image. And actually, if we were to shrink it down, it would be right, that's about 128 by 128 pixels. However, you'll notice this shaded rectangle right here. That is a collision mask. And we have collision mask right here. So for each piece of artwork you make, you will have to assign a collision mask. Now, by default, GameMaker Studio is going to make a rectangle around your art. It's going to, as tight as it can, to the art pixels, the colored pixels you've drawn. So this space over here is transparent. Its alpha transparency is set to 0, I think, or 1. I honestly don't remember whether it's 0 or 1, but it's transparent. It's just all you need to know for now. Let's go over to the orc real quick. And let's open the collision mask. And you can see here the orc has it's broader, but it still has the collision mask. And the reason is you see that hand touches this side, and the orc has a little top knot of hair as well, which is hard to see on my dark background, but it actually has a little mohawk up here, or a little top knot. So cool thing is, if you ever want to modify these a bit, you can adjust tolerances here, pixel tolerances, so you can get a little bit of overlap. So instead of like that, you could maybe do like that. So you can really visually tell your player that they've touched, but they can't cross over each other completely. They just do a little bit at the edge. So you could set that tolerance to 1 or 2 pixels if you want a little bit of grinding. Or check this out. You have some different shapes you can use. Ellipse, right? We have a diamond. Yeah, if you want them to be able to get a little more like side to side like this. And what else do we have? Precise. Oh, check that out. Precise is to the pixel of artwork. Check that out. For every frame of the artwork. Meaning that this little top knot of hair right here that's flipping on the back of the works, or his little hand right there, could bump in. This is where, like, if you had like a battler game and you wanted to make it so that the guy's like literally the tip of his spear can hit the heel of an enemy jumping over him, so here's the spear and the guy's jumping over and it just touches and damage is dealt. Think like a hitbox type of sensation. But the more precise you are, the slower it is. So we'll just set it back to regular rectangle for now. But yeah, you could set that for every single object in the game. This is pretty fun. Okay, so we've looked at the sprites. We'll close that down. I just wanted to show you that you could fiddle around with how much tolerance and the type of collision mask each graphic has in your game. But we need to do something else. Let's jump into the code for the orc. And we want to say when the orc hits the orc object, here are its events. We want to hurt the hero when the orc collides with the hero. And that is this one right here. So we'll scroll over and let's do a quick comment. You've probably noticed the at description, insert description here. Let's just say hero collision. All right, so we'll just put hero, and you can see here now, well, that's not actually that useful. Well, I just pointed out when we it says it right here. Object hero, collision with hero. That's actually not that useful. Let's do a different one. Let's do, what is it, alarm 1? Yeah, let's change this to movement. Movement. Boom. And the reason I did that is alarm. So obviously, this may be a little more obvious that like we're talking about the object hero. So I probably need to change that. You can see these say insert description here. But for alarm 1, remember how we said there could be alarm 0 through 11? It can be really tricky to keep track of what is alarm 7 for? What's alarm 3 for? I don't exactly remember. By editing your description, you can keep track of like alarm 1 is for movement. I know that was a little out of nowhere, but I just saw it and was like, oh, let's talk about it. So there you go. But it could be very handy for clarifying when you're looking at your events windows, and you particularly if you have multiple alarms, it can be pretty handy. So let's jump back to the hero. When we collide with the hero, we want to hurt the hero, take away from the HP. So we could do that by saying object underscore hero dot, and then we can get into VHP. But one of the reasons why V underscore, it's not bringing up HP or V underscore max HP is we are kind of messing with encapsulation. When you program and you do good coding, you want to try and keep it so all the orc's code relates to the orc. And the orc doesn't know about the object hero's code specifically. And the reason that's important is imagine you had 75 monsters like the orc in the game. If you make a change to the code, you don't want to have to necessarily, you add a new variable, you add dexterity or some stat like that. You don't want to have to go into all 75 monsters and then say, well, listen, when your dexterity, when you run into the hero, your dexterity is going to determine if they dodge or you hit them or something like that. You don't want to have to change that code like 75 times. So encapsulation really has to do with the word inheritance, meaning you write one piece of code and then make that code relevant to many, you make a monster code, and then that monster code is used for all your monsters, your green slime, your red dragon, your stone golem. We're not going to get into inheritance today, but I want to plant the the word in your head, inheritance. Okay, but right now we're talking about encapsulation. So GameMaker Studio is making it so that when we make an object like orc, the object orc is going to know about its code, all of its events, but it doesn't know that the object hero exists. It doesn't know that the object chest exists, because you might delete object chest. Think about it. If I write object underscore chest dot x equals 600, right? It's going to essentially mean, yeah, whenever the orc collides with the object hero, the chest is going to move to x 600 on the screen. It'll jump over. Now, however, here's the problem. This is in the orc's code, and it'll work just fine. But what happens if I'm like, oh, you know what? I didn't actually need a chest for the game. I come up here and I delete the chest. It's gone from the game. You know, as I'm designing the game, doing game balance, I didn't need the chest. Cool, that was easy to delete the chest, but you know what the problem is? I might have a character like Orc with a buried event, a collision with the object hero that references the chest. And what if I have 75 other monsters? The red dragon, the green slime, the stone golem, and they all have this reference to object chest. That could be a problem. I have to go in and edit it all, because when I run the code, it's going to go, there is no object chest. What are you talking about? And it'll crash. It won't crash, but the compiler will fail to compile. Because it'll go, I don't know, you deleted object chest 2 weeks ago. Sorry, bub, this ain't going to run. That's the idea of encapsulation. So rather than hard coding object hero or object chest, we're going to say other. It's a red keyword. You can see here it's id.instance. Remember, these objects, every time we add one into the game, creates an instance. Well, each instance that we create is unique from every other. Remember, in this code right now, our object orc has a collision for other object orcs, because when we run our game, we currently have 4 instances of orcs, but each one has their own unique ID.instance. It's just an ID number. You know, it's like, I think it's like a 6-digit number, 7-digit number or something. You have quite a few objects in the game. So that being said, let's jump back to the object orc. And other is our special keyword. Now, when I hit dot, I get some different variables popping up. In this case, v underscore HP, v underscore max, v underscore HP. Other could refer to the chest. Other could refer to the object hero. Other could refer to an object orc. Well, how do we know which one are we talking to? Others, it's a little confusing to me, Mark. I don't know what the other one's going to be. Well, the other one is going to be who you collided with. Now, in this case, it's pretty specifically saying when you collide with the hero is going to be the other in this case. Now, when we talk about inheritance, we could be less specific. In the case of, if we made an object called monster and we had 75 children underneath the monster, all the varieties of monster underneath, we could write the code one time saying whenever the orc collides with a monster of any kind, it's going to do this to the monster's HP, and that'll apply to red dragons and stone golems and green slimes and everyone else. So we only have to write it once. So encapsulation is a powerful idea. We will develop it more, but again, I'm just trying to plant the seed of what encapsulation means and what inheritance might mean. They're very advanced ideas, but it's the only way to really make a large program work. So, you don't have to fully understand what I'm saying, but just hear the words encapsulation, inheritance. They're good. I need to learn more about them. I got to figure out how they work. So here we go. Here's the VHP. So other.vhp, in this case, it will be the object heroes in this collision, is going to, I could say equal other.vhp minus, what do we say, 15? 20? I don't know. Boom. There you go. So Yeah, the other target, in this case, you can see right there, the hero. You see what I'm mousing over? We're in the orc objects code, but in this case, it knows very specifically this is an object hero collision mask. Um, Now, another way to write this, other HP equals the other's current HP. So say HP is 100, so the other's HP of 100 is going to equal the other HP's 100 minus 15. 100 minus 15 would be 85. But you could write this a little more concisely if you wanted to. You could do this. You could say minus equals. This is a special little 2-character piece of code that equals, that means the exact same thing. It's going to say that the other's v underscore HP equals itself minus whatever this variable is. So HP equals HP minus 15 is what the minus equal says. We could also do plus equal, right? We could do, I think, times equal, and we could probably do divide equal. Yeah, the backslash there, I think, is the division symbol as well. So all of those should theoretically work if you want to just write simple code. Now, I personally like writing code more verbosely, more readable. So although this definitely saves you some character and it makes your code look a little bit cleaner, the real reason things like this exist is, I think back in the day when you had a limited amount of memory, writing everything shorter variable names, you were saving on space. Then you'd compile, obviously. Ultimately, when your compiler for whatever language is going to convert all of those variable names, like those long variable names, into probably just like, I don't want to say registry, but it's just into numbers that reference certain blocks of memory. Right? All a variable name is doing is storing a chunk in the computer's memory. So it's saying, oh, slot 82 in memory holds VHP. So when the compiler, gets it down to machine language, it's not saying VHP. It's saying memory slot 62. Yeah, that's how it actually works. Now, in the old days in particular, it was so critical to make everything just take up as little space in memory as possible because you had so little memory and the processor was so slow. Now with modern scripting languages, they could probably hold on to the variable names in code, even like 20-character variable names, and have a little lookup table that assigns it memory slot 62. They could probably hold on to all that because we have so much headroom now. We have gigabytes of memory. We have gigahertz of processing power. So things have probably changed a little bit. But in any case, I'm explaining a lot. But I'm going to write it other.v underscore HP equals other.v underscore HP minus 15. I'm going to write the verbose thing so that it reads, that it speaks in code, because I want you to be able to understand what you're writing, that it makes sense logically. When you're trying to debug later, you're not confused about going, what's that special? Oh God, I wrote that little tight piece of code, but what exactly did that mean? I'm assuming people watching my shows are new to programming. So this is just better to read. All right, well, we've done it. Now every time the orc hits the hero or the hero runs into the orc, it's going to damage us. Our health is 100. Let's just stand here. Oh, yep, that guy right there was bunking into us. It didn't look very bunk worthy, but he was definitely here. I walked into him that time. I hit a right arrow a couple times and bounced into him. There, yeah, he's sending me negative. So they are in fact damaging me right now. Pretty cool. Let's close that down. So you notice it doesn't look like they're actually bouncing into us very well. You could do a couple of things. You could put feedback in the game, like making a bonk sound effect play. So you would just literally put that here on another line of code. You'd go get some sound effect or make your own sound effect. You probably have to look into it. Modern Windows 10, 11, whatever we're on. I don't think I have 11. I think I have 10. Probably has some little microphone recording thing. So if you've got a microphone, you can just hit record, make a sound. Like you could just, bonk 2 dog toys together, or clap your hands, or slam a book, and you can make your own little kind of cruddy sound effects. So you can find free sound effects online, whatever you want to do. Be careful of copyright though. If if you're taking samples of other people's sound effects, those are copyrighted. So if you can figure out how to make your own or find royalty-free sound effects online, so what I'd recommend. But then you would hear a bunk, 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 bunk every time the orc ran into the hero. So one thing I don't like though is how quickly we can run our health down. If I move around here, let's try and I can just bonk into the orcs, so the orcs could theoretically bonk into me over and over and take my health down really, really quickly, like that. See that? I'm just walking into the orcs over and over. I want to make it so that the orcs can only damage me every so often. So let's make a hit lock. All right. What this is going to do is we're going to add what's called a flag. Let's jump down to the variable definitions for the orc. Let's jump in here. Let's add a new variable, and we're going to call it v underscore. We'll use the word flag just for educational purposes, and we'll call it hit lock. I'm going to use a very specific type of value here called a Boolean. Booleans come in two varieties, true or false. 0 for false, 1 for true. I'm going to uncheck true to start with. So my variable flag hit lock is going to be false to start. It is not true. Check it, it's true. Unchecked, it's false. So what is a flag? Well, flag is not, it's an old school programming term. It is essentially saying we're going to use like 1 bit in a byte of memory to store things that have changed in our program. And again, this was about storing stuff before. So the idea is that if you had completed a gathering quest in your computer game, saying collect 8 skulls, the quest, and the player had completed the quest, you would turn the 8 skulls flag to true. That way, when the player returns their character to the quest giver won't offer the collect 8 skulls quest again. It'll be like, you already did it. It'll instead say, because that flag has been turned to true, it'll say, thank you so much for getting the skulls for my potion. And, oh, okay, so the dialogue's changed. And so in RPG games in particular, using flags after flags after flags for a given NPC, such as the orc, you could have a dozen different flags in here so that the relationship between the hero and the orc will change as you turn flag after flag on, all the quests and what it's like you stole from me. So you turn on the steal flag for the local bread vendor. So you'd have a v underscore flag underscore stolen. And then if your player ever steals from the vendor's bread shop, you'll turn that flag on, and next time the character comes to try and buy from the vendor's shop, the vendor will remember, you stole from me once. I'm not going to sell you any bread. That's how you can do cool stuff like that. So let's do this. Let's say that whenever the orc collides with the object hero, we're going to subtract 15 from the hero's health, but we're also going to say v underscore flag. When am I locked in other? Hold on, let's try self. Hold on. Yeah. V underscore. Why is it not bringing it up? Sorry. I really don't know why. It's supposed to auto-populate that. I don't understand why it's not. So, V underscore. I'm just going to type it out. The autocomplete's supposed to pop up, folks. I don't know why it's not. This isn't me not knowing. It just should do it. V, hit flag, lock. Should do it. Equals true. And I can use the word true, and you see it turned red. It's a reserved word in GameMaker Studio. I mean, it's a special word, true and falses. Or I could also put in the value of 1. In the compiler, the number true, the little keyword true in red, actually just converts to the number 1. False, the word false would convert to the number 0. FYI. But yeah, let's use the word true though, just so it's more readable. And we want to add a little bit of logic here. We want to say if v underscore there is underscore flag, it popped up that time. So I don't know if there's a little bit of lag in my GameMaker Studio to where when I added the variable, it took a while for the IDE, the Integrated Development Environment, to populate that auto pop-up. All right. So just another thing to learn. We're at 30 minutes. Sorry, I'm going to got to learn more. Anytime you're in a computer code development window or program, it's usually referred to as an IDE. Right here, IDE version 2024. ... Integrated Development Environment. So this whole thing here is called an IDE for GameMaker Studio. All right. So there it is, though. If the flag hit lock is equal to, not assignment, but question, is it equal to true or the number 1, then we're going to, and I'll write out the word then. I don't have to. You don't have to use the word then anymore, folks, but I do. Boom. And I'm actually going to put 2 statements inside of this if statement. So let me scroll this over so you can see that a little better. There we made an if statement saying, yeah, if the hit lock flag equals, actually we want to make it false. My bad, false. If it is false, so if I have not flagged hitting that the orc has hit the hero, if it's false, it hasn't happened, then the other's HP is going to be subtracted, and I'm going to turn the hit lock on. I'm going to turn the lock on. I'm going to say, yeah, I'm locking you, because I want to wait a little while until you can hit the hero again. The orc doesn't have infinite hit speed. It can only hit every so often. How often? Well, I could create a new alarm. I could create alarm number 2, and I could set it to 30 frames, 1 second. I could set it to 180 frames, which would be 3 seconds. Right? I think we're at 60 frames per second in the game, right? We looked at that. But I'll just lock it to the movement. Let's jump back to alarm 1, which is tied to movement. And listen, under alarm 1, we can put a lot of different code. Right now, we're choosing a random direction for the orc to move. Then we're having it move. And then we're calling alarm 1 again, 60 frames later, 1 second later, right? But let's add a new little section of code in here. Make a comment. And we're going to say unlock all flags. This is just a note. It's not code. It's just a comment. I'm telling myself for any special flags, I make, well, I don't want to say all flags. Let's just say unlock flags. There may be flags, like in the case of stealing from the baker, that don't unlock, right? And in this case, the flags I want to unlock are v underscore hit flag lock equals false again, is assigned to false. There we go. So what that means is that every single time the orc moves, which is once per second, it's going to move in a direction, and it's going to turn off its hit lock. It's going to unlock the ability to hit the hero again. And this should work very well if me, the player, is running. If I'm clicking the button, click, 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 right? I can click like 3 or 4 times a second. Ta, 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 ta. I can't drive my hero into the orc and run his health down so fast. Let's run the code really quick. I know that's a lot of explaining. So now, there he hit me once. Now I'm walking into the orc, but I can only make my health go down by 1 every second. You can hear how I'm stuck underneath the guy. Dang it. There we go. I went off the screen. Okay, so hit lock. Now, if you just remember that that's every 60 frames, and we're running at 60 frames per second. If we wanted that hit lock to be longer, if you wanted to have a speed variable where it's an attribute or an ability for your orc, and your orc speed is 180, it's a stat, you could convert that 180, you could make alarm number 2, and you could have alarm number 2 call itself every speed, v underscore speed of the orc, in this case, which would be 180. And now the orc can only hit the hero every 3 seconds. Faster creatures with a speed of, well, we'd have to do some inversion thing, but lower speed would allow you to hit quicker, but we could do something where it's like 400 minus the speed. So if your speed was 300, 400 minus 300 would be 100, so every 100 frames you could hit. But a slower creature with a speed of 120, 400 minus 120 would be 280. That's now over 4 seconds between hits. So you could do little things like that logically in code to make it so that your actual creature stats affect how the game runs. We might set up something like that in a little bit, but for now, that's a minimum little bit. So we've talked about hits. We've introduced the idea of what a flag is. So the code we did, just to make it clear, is we today check the solid box for our hero and our orc. We then made new events for collisions so that the solid works, because solid won't work if you don't have collision events getting called. Then inside of the collision, we said, yeah, you know what? We want to see that if the orc will hurt the other, in this case the hero, over and over again, but only so long as the flag hit lock is false. That we are not locked. Hitting is not locked off. When I say locked, think of like a padlock. We're locking and unlocking the padlock. That's what we're doing. And then we went into alarm 1 and we said, oh, you know what? Well, we have to unlock. Every second we're going to unlock the orc's ability to hit the hero. That's the logic spoken in word of what we did with those few lines of code spread around. One last thing we want to take care of here is collisions. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it real quick here. Let's do it for the hero. Jump over to the object hero. Let's jump into right. Here we go. When the hero is moving right, they're trying to walk off the east side or the right side of the screen. They're going to hit the wall and bounce off. We don't want them to walk off the screen anymore. So we're going to use a little something called, let's just start typing in window, right? So remember our game room here, right? That's going to be our window when we run the game. We hit run. This is a window in Windows. So this is what we're talking about. We're going to jump back to our piece of code, object hero. Here we go. So I'm just going to start typing in the word window, and it pops all these up: window center, window device, window enable, get the height, get the width, get the X and the Y, window get XY. That would be the upper left corner of your window would be its XY, right? As you're dragging windows around, right? You know, we also have other cool things down here. You can window mouse get X and Y. You can find out where your mouse is in the window, like what you're clicking on. If you wanted to write your own functions instead of using the mouse add events, right? Here's your mouse stuff. That's mouse grabbing events that Yo-Yo Studio provides. But yeah, using over here, window, get mouse, and all this, you could figure out where the mouse is and do cool stuff within the window. What else do we got? You can set stuff. Yeah, you can adjust the window's height and width. Full screen mode right there. Window set full screen. Window set cursor. All sorts of cool stuff. So let's jump back, though, to get width. Remember, width is this way. Height is this way. I think you guys know that. So it's a function. Window get width, and it's got the little brackets because it's a function returns a value all the time. Doesn't take any arguments, but what do we want the code to say? We want to say if, and do some little closey brackets here like this. Window get width is greater than X. In this case, who's X? The hero's X. We're referring to the object hero's X plus 128, which is how much we move. Then we're going to do a little chunk of code. So we're making some more logic here, folks. Boom, boom. And I always try and indent one. I hit the tab. Usually we tab over anytime we're writing code. It makes it more readable if it's indented a bit, right? As you're reading down, right? Indent. Yeah. Your preference. You don't have to tab in, but I recommend it. So here we go. The logic is if the window's width is greater than the x of the hero plus 128, I'm going to move the hero 128. However, if the hero's x plus 128 is greater than the edge of the box, I will not move the hero over. I'm going to bounce him off the side of the window. I don't want him to walk off the side. So, simple little bit of logic. Let's run it. I think that'll work. If it's object would, yeah, it's saying, yeah, if I have room to move him 128 without going off the side of the screen, I will. Then I will move him. Otherwise, this little line of code here gets skipped. What happens when an if statement is not true? True and false, Boolean. If it's true, it jumps into the brackets and runs whatever code is in here. If it's false, it hits this if statement and then bounces out to the bottom of the bracket. It will never get into this spot right here. It'll never get to this line of code if the if statement is false. Okay, so true and false really, really matter. Let's run the code really quickly. And I am going to use the right arrow key for my hero. Sorry, got to dodge around these guys. Here we go. There we are. I'm hitting the right arrow key over and over. My guy is not walking off the screen. I'll try again. There we go. So, your homework. Actually, sort of a significant amount. I would like you to make it so that using window get width and window get height, remember, height's up and down. I want you to go into key left, key up, and key down, and make it so that you cannot walk the hero off the top, the bottom, the left, or the right of the screen. Also, for homework, I want you to do the same thing for the orc. I will give you a quick little hint. That is going to happen in alarm 1 movement. We put that into the description just to help remind us, how does the orc know how to move? Right here in alarm 1. In fact, it's actually movement AI. Alarm 1 is the artificial intelligence for your orc's movement that you're coding. Yeah, you're making a brain. You're making a logical decision engine for your orc character. It's all run in alarm 1, meaning once a second, your orc thinks. All the rest of the time the game is running, the orc's not thinking. But once a second, the orc thinks about something. It's going to do something. You are programming the artificial intelligence for your orc. Come into here, you have your directions. You can see this code is very similar to the hero's code we just modified. So I'm going to have you put if statements in for all these to decide, hey, orc, are you going to go off the screen? So when we come back next week, hopefully you'll have done that homework, and neither the orcs nor the hero will be able to move off the screen. They'll all be stuck in the window together. That's it. That was a super long one. These are getting longer, but we're going to get in more and more depth. I'm going to throw more and more at you as we talk about things like encapsulation, things like inheritance, things like Booleans, true and false, and how logical structures work, like the fact that an if statement skips all of its bracketed code when it's false. We'll probably have to get into compound if-then statements as well, using things like and or on the next one. All right, folks, take care.